Some viewers may find the following video disturbing. Viewer discretion is advised.
Hey everyone, welcome to the discussion for Hadrian's Wall, and I gotta say, this is easily one of the best flippin' rights I have ever played. It has so much to it that, like, it's mind-blowing, because I don't think I've seen a flippin' right or rollin' right that looks as busy as it was and have such a small footprint, yet being as deep as it actually is, which is huge, because I usually don't care for flippin' rights because they're typically, you roll dice and you're just like, oh, okay, I put that there and put that there and that's that. Or you flip a card and you're like, oh, okay, I put that there and put in, like, and then you just kind of, all right, well, I just did that for 15 minutes. I am extremely impressed with how much they were able to put into this in terms of, overall theme and just sheer complexity, but yet also everything kind of making sense. Whenever I'm playing this, it makes me think of like the T-Series games and the Vita Lacerda games, not so much obviously in sheer complexity, but in that you need this to be able to do this, and you need that to be able to do this, and then it all kind of comes, and you need this to do this, and it all kind of comes full circle, and everything just starts to make sense. And especially when you play it quite a bit, like what workers you need, and if you don't have those workers, you immediately know what you can't do. That's one of my favorite things about this, is you have your left sheet and your right sheet. Your left sheet is really just kind of where you keep track, of everything in terms of like your defense, which is a huge thing of the game, is being attacked by the fate cards, by the Picts, and how they're going to attack you. But it feels more like of a tracker. Like this is kind of where your point tracker is, and then your right side are where all your actions really are. The 5 different like citizen or factions that you're trying to utilize that'll help you on the left side. But everything just connects in a beautiful way for your end total, because at the end of each year, you're going to be attacked. So you know that your goal is to, get the resources you need to be able to build up your wall and not die from having a bunch of disdain. But, like, for example, it's just like, okay, if you don't have any servants, then you can't do anything on your right side. Almost anything. You can't do, you can scout. Like, that's one of the only things you can do without a servant. But, and if you only have yellow, well, you can't do any of the main actions, but you can increase your reputation with the different factions that allow you to get resources. But what's amazing is if you don't have like one of those workers, if you need a builder, you can look and be like, okay, here's what I do have. What can I do in combination that allows me to get a builder and still retain some of the workers? Like, because it doesn't help you if you spend all those workers just to get one builder and then be like, oh, well, I actually still needed a servant and 2 resources to do what I want to do, and I spent all those to get the one builder. So there's a lot of thinking that goes on into this game, but I don't know, it just flows so well, and the game is not punishing in any way. Like, you can, if you completely neglect to do, what the game theme is about, of defending yourself from being attacked, then yeah, it's going to be pretty punishing. But every time I've played, one of my favorite things that Garfield games does in Paladins, for example, is you draft your workers. In this game, you draw a fate card, and you're like, okay, well, this one says I get 2 builders, 2 servants, 1 citizen, and 2 soldiers, and a resource. Okay, what can I do with those? I much prefer games that they give you something, and then you do your best with what you are given, versus, trying to do everything you want, and then rolling a die or flipping a card to see if you succeeded. Because at least when you're given something, you can actually plan around that, versus planning and then just being like, oh, okay, well, the die roll didn't go my way. Well, I guess I wasted all that time and got excited for nothing. Every single time I have played this, I have been able to always utilize all of my resources. Like, I haven't played like every year. Every year I always have nothing, which is the best way to go about it because they don't carry over. So if you like increase your resource production a lot, and you have like 10 resources, but you have nothing to do with them, it's like, okay, well, great. How can I use these? Well, my resource production is good. Okay, I'll use my builders and my soldiers to increase my my granaries, my fort, so then I can just use all that to build the wall. Oh, and that's going to give me these cohorts, that's going to give me these citizens, so I can use those citizens to increase my relationship with these, which allow me to then, do more things with the, the different type of buildings and stuff that they work with. The other thing that I really like about this game is that you cannot do everything. This game does not overstay its welcome. You feel, at least I feel, satisfied by the end of it, because if you were able to fill out this entire sheet, then it's kind of like, okay, well, why would I ever play this again? Like, I was able to do all precincts, all market, I was able to gladiator fight, I was going to do theaters, I can do baths and courthouse. If you're able to do all that, then you just play the game once, and you're like, okay, I did all of it. But the fact that you can't, because the game does not last long enough, and so you have to kind of pick what route do you want to go to be able to increase your different tracks, attribute tracks, renown, piety, valor, and discipline, and then just because at the end of the game it is based off victory points, so you just kind of have to decide, oh, how do I want to play it this time? Well, what are the workers coming my way? How are my citizen cards or my personal cards coming out? Everything just flows extremely well, and the fact that you can do these amazing combos, that's another cool thing. If you watch the run through, I was able to like do this really cool combo with building my fort and my wall and getting those citizens and using those to be able to get resources, and then finish out by building a landmark. I was only able to build one landmark, but in the way it just comboed off, it was super cool. And not a lot of these games have that. Most of these flippin' rights or rollin' rights are just you roll or flip, and then you do one thing with that. And in here, especially as a solo game, you just get to keep doing whatever you want to do until you decide to stop, and that's when the year ends. So if you can keep comboing off, and if you can keep using workers to be able to get different types of workers to build, to be able to increase your tracks, and then that lets you get more workers, you can just keep going in that engine, and then finally be at the end and be like, well, I had 2 guards, but by the end of everything, I now have 6. And I got 2 cohorts with that, and then that allowed me to protect, and then you go to the end of the year. The combo nature art is something that I feel these games need to have more of. Normally these kinds of games are filler games, and fillers don't really do it for me, because it's like, well, I mean, there's a YouTube video that's 15 minutes long. I'd rather just watch that than set up a game and play that for 15 minutes, because most of them just kind of feel like you're going through the motions, and here you don't. Like, and it has such a good pacing to it. Like, you have, if you, like, in year 1, you're just like, man, I don't have a whole lot to go on, and you don't. But you still feel like you're doing something. You feel there's a sense of progression. You don't get to, like, year 4, and then you also still have nothing to do. You keep doing better and better and better, and then by the end of it, you're just like, okay, well, that's the strategy that I chose to do. Let's see how my points came out, and I did significantly better. Well, the last game I played, I got 54 points, and obviously, funny enough, my valor was the exact same. Huh, that's funny. But I also played a slightly different way. In this, I still did kind of the patricians, but I definitely didn't touch priests or temples or the precincts at all. But I focused on diplomats, finished out scouting, and I did the theater and the gladiator stuff. So it's extremely cool. So The biggest thing that I initially thought was going to be a huge problem was this favor, or this fate deck. So your resources that you start with, your gladiator fighting, your scouting, your Pict attacks, everything revolves around this deck. And I initially thought, well, that's going to be extremely annoying because there is absolutely no way for you to mitigate what you draw. Like, there's nothing in here that's like draw 2, and put it at the bottom. But I don't actually find it a problem. So I don't know what they did. Normally, this would be a problem in every other game. I don't know why it doesn't bother me here. Because this is also not a short game. It's not like this is a 10-minute game and it's like, whatever, the deck is what it is. Like some people do, which is fine. Like if the game's 10, 15 minutes, then yeah, who gives a fuck if the deck, deals you a shitty hand. But this is about an hour-long game, and you're like, well, I mean, why would this random deck not bother me? And I think it's because you just have so many, because you can combo off with your engine. Well, it's not even really an engine necessarily. I guess it is with how you use workers. Your workers are essentially your engine, but you have so much control over what you can do. This doesn't show up until at the end, but they mitigated it by you having ways to get favor, which is an absolute counter to this, and it came up multiple times. You're very limited on your favors, and you have to build towards them. So it's like, okay, well, Small Temple's not super hard. It costs, a servant and a builder and a stone, and then 2 other workers to be able to do that, to be able to get a piety and a favor, and the favor can be used anywhere. Okay, well, I can go up a little bit on that. I can go up on the patricians. That gives me some diplomats, but I have to choose which cohort they are going to be diplomatizing. If the cards don't come out, then I get hurt that way. Okay, well, let's say a few of the cards do come out poorly. Well, okay, I'll use my favors, my once per game favors, to counteract those, gain some valor. Okay, well, valor gives you soldiers, which you use those soldiers to increase your wall, which gives you more cohorts. So you have ways to mitigate the bad draws, and then you're like, okay, well, I was incredibly weak in the center. I'm going to now build that up. And then, if you do get disdain, which you have ways, it's not like an all or nothing, which is also really good. If you protect, the left side, but if you get through the center, well, you still gain some valor, but you also gain disdain that way, based off the way that the gray flags, like the points, are. But then it's like, okay, well, there's a way to remove disdain. Disdain is essentially your negative points, so if you gain, 5 disdain, you're getting negative 9 points. So it's like, well, I'm not doing too hot on building my cohorts or my walls, so I think I'll build my baths. So I'll let a few people come through, and then I'll just go and build the baths and then remove disdain. And then it's just, you just have ways to mitigate the randomness. In terms of scouting, you have multiple options there as well. You have your own personal cards, and these are multi-use cards, which are really, really, really cool. I love multi-use cards because you either have, hey, endgame victory points, like goals you want to go for, your scouting Tetris, polyomino shape, workers you want to get, or markets, like goods that you want to trade for. So each of these have 4 different things. You draw 2, and you're like, what do I want from this? Like, I'm working on this goal, but I also really want these workers. And so I just love that decision-making process. And there are 6, there are 12 total cards. You draw 2, so obviously for 6 rounds. And for scouting, you have 2 of each shape. And you're rewarded for scouting. You get valor per completed row, and then there's endgame victory points for completed column. And then also, if you're playing solo, you just have a neutral deck, and then you just draw 2, and then those are options there. And it's like, okay, well, I didn't get the shapes I wanted, but he did. So I'll use his. I'll scout and use his. But that's gonna, ooh, man, I'm drawing 4 cards this time. Do I really want to draw 5? Can I handle 5? Can I counteract if they go through, can I manage the disdain? everything just works incredibly smoothly. I love the fact that you can't do everything, but if you do, you're rewarded. The reminders on the sheets are super awesome. Max 1 performance per year, max 1 battle, max 2 bribes per year. Everything just flows extremely smooth. If I had one negative to think of the game, is that even though you can't do everything, and even though like you're gonna have 2 different cards that that come out different endgame victory points, it falls into the trap of it still being a certain theme, which is about building a wall and defending against the Picts. So I feel after multiple playthroughs, and I'm kind of already getting there, is that you've seen it, you've played the game, phenomenal game, but you're kind of like, yeah, all right, I figured out kind of the engine. I'm gonna always kind of be able to do these cohorts and defend against the wall. Yeah, I might not do as good, or I might do a little bit better, but you are kind of always doing that. I think this game very much would lend itself to get an expansion, which Garfield Games tends to do. Is it Garfield? Yeah. Paladins is getting expansions, Viscounts is getting expansions, Architects has expansions. So if they decide to do expansions for this, that would be fantastic, because new sheets, that is kind of a problem with just flipping rights and rolling rights, is that they can't change the sheets in the base game. Like Cartographers, for example, just came out with their Heroes, which has different sheets, so that gives it life and different cards to be able to do different stuff with it. So I definitely think having new factions to deal with, maybe new fate cards, new enemies, new player cards. This game definitely could benefit from having variety to it, because the system is fantastic. I think it is absolutely awesome. I would just love to see more of it. And that usually is always a good sign. It's because it's like, I want to keep playing it, but I don't want to keep playing this over and over and over, because they always kind of overstay their welcome. It's like, all right, yep, I've seen that, but even then, this is one of those that I would sit down if someone was like, hey, do you want to play that? I'd be like, yeah, I do. Even though I've played it multiple times, yeah, I'll give it another shot. But also at the same time, this one, if another negative for some people, is that there is almost zero player interaction. I chose to do this solo because nothing really changes. Like, this neutral deck is kind of the same. It takes the place of 2 other people, because the only thing that changes is the 2 cards you choose, the one to be your end game and then the one to be your resource thing, is what other people do as well. And then whenever you're trading, you just give them a worker, and it's like, okay, I'm going to use yours, and that's that. This does the exact same thing. I actually kind of like it better in the fact that whenever you use the neutral player's cards, it means you're drawing more fate cards. I like that decision making versus, okay, yeah, I don't really care if you have another soldier. Like, I'm not following exactly what you're doing here. Like, it's not the same as drafting cards in Seven Wonders and giving them resources to be able to use their stuff. It's like, nah, yeah, you can just have 1 extra worker. That's okay. I very much like the extra fate cards, because that can really hurt you. And you'll feel it immediately, versus at the end of the game where it's like, oh man, you beat me by 2 points because I gave you that worker? Well, there's no way of me ever really knowing that. I think this game is fantastic. I really hope they come out with expansions for it, but we shall see. So, on a scale of 1 to 10, I'm going to give Hadrian's Wall a 9. I think this is a phenomenal flippin' right. I'm extremely impressed. I really, really like it. So, that's my thoughts on Hadrian's Wall. Let me know what you think of the game in the comments below. Other than that, like, comment, share, and subscribe, and have a wonderful whatever time of day it is for you. Hey everyone, thank you for watching, and I really hope that you enjoyed the video. If you would like to see more of my content, go ahead and click that subscribe button and the bell to be notified whenever I upload any new content. If you feel like supporting the channel, you can go ahead and click that Patreon link to be taken to my Patreon, and any help is truly appreciated. Other than that, stick around for any other run-throughs or reviews or cool top 10s or whatever I feel like putting on. Other than that, like, comment, share, and subscribe, and have a wonderful whatever time of day it is for you.